Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. So, so this is the energy model which I've been talking to you about. Uh, so over here, if you see, we have a distribution of all uh, uh, the supply which we can have. Base load hai, and also we also have the uh, non-base load. So base load is the nuclear, uh, non-dispatchable, dispatchable, hydro, and if you come to these rows, gas, new, combined cycle, simple cycle, old combined cycle. So all these, ठीक है? we we this is for the New England. So the combined power capacity of the nuclear right now in 2019 is around 3,300. It's gonna continue with at the same rate. So again, for the next year, that is 2020, it's gonna be 3,300. But then somewhere around 2024, it's going to reduce because one of the nuclear power plants is going to get decommissioned, and that will not be replaced. So hence in 2024 it will come down to a lesser value. So let's suppose that the nuclear power plant is around 900 megawatt, okay, the one which has been decommissioned. So this will reduce to around 2400. So we can put this 2400 megawatt here on, and the whole data can actually be copied, right? बिकॉज उसके बाद नया न्यूक्लियर पावर प्लांट तो कहीं से आ नहीं जाएगा अनलेस एंड अनटिल यू आर कमिशनिंग वन. सो ऐसे एंड अगेन अराउंड 2027 या 2028 ना देयर इज गोना बी अनदर डीकमिशनिंग. वहां पे फिर से एक न्यूक्लियर पावर प्लांट को डीकमिशन कर देंगे. तो लेट्स सपोज कि 2028 में पावर प्लांट को डीकमिशन करेंगे, एंड सपोज दैट इज अ 1000 मेगावाट पावर प्लांट जो कि डीकमिशन हुआ है, तो इट्स गोना रिड्यूस टू 1400 मेगावाट. ठीक है, this will actually continue. ठीक है. So this so what we have done is, in the first call, in the first row, we 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 were assuming that the nuclear power plant will assume its life cycle, which means that it will retain its life cycle for many more years to come. But then here we have modeled a scenario wherein in 2024 900 megawatt is going to be less, is going to be reduced because one of the nuclear power plants is going to get decommissioned, and again in 2028 another nuclear power plant is going to decommission. So it will reduce to further, it will further reduce to around 1400, and that's how it's going to continue. If we commission a nuclear power plant in the interim period or in the next period, so we can actually add the capacity here in the first row. Similarly, it's the very same thing for all the others. Nuclear dispatchable is one. When we talk about small modular reactors, so they will come under the category of dispatchable because that unit can be dispatched to as and when it is required. So till around 2029 we'll not have any such scenario, but then we have assumed that in 2030, due to large scale development in various organizations, like the New Scale, like the Starcore Nuclear, like many other. So these people are developing small modular reactors. So they can actually come into the picture, and then we can say that okay, 700 megawatt is what is called as the dispatchable nuclear here. Then we have the hydro. Again, hydro is going to be fixed, but then the government, New England region, they have some efforts to keep on increasing the capacity. So they increase the capacity, and they also keep extending the life of the old plants. So if we see ideally, because some of these plants, hydro plants, would be very old, so they must be decommissioned somewhere here, and then that would lead to a drastic reduction in the capacity here. But then we assume that the plant is gonna have a life extension to 2040. So that's why we don't see a decrease, but then we see few increases over here from 2020 to 2024, or 2022, because of a few additions. Um, Now BTM solar is behind the meter solar, which is like if you go on and if you put a solar plate on the top of your roof, then that's going to be considered as BTM solar. And the assumption which we have come like we have come ahead with is uh, 250 megawatt of BTM solar is going to be added per year. So you see over here, initially it was 1775, and then you add 250 again, it becomes 2025, again 250, 2275, and it continues. Now, this is a very simple assumption. It might grow exponentially because of the, you know, advancement in the technology of manufacturing, advancement in the lithium ion battery technology, or some other storage technology or facility. This can actually skyrocket. I mean, it can actually grow exponentially. But then here we have taken it as a linear growth of 250, because that's how we feel it's going to be in the future. So these are all based on assumptions. You know, the model is as good as your assumption. Then we have this grid solar. Again, we assume that 250 is going to be added every year, because that's a reality because of the government encouragement and all those things. It's increasing in such a fashion. But then yes, I personally believe that it's going to skyrocket. Then wind onshore is something which has been planted somewhere near the shore. So this is the big windmills which has been planted around. So the government has encouraged, private entities are also taking more part into this because of the renewable initiative. So you can see that it's increasing. And similar is for wind offshore. So offshore is, which is somewhere around the city itself. I mean, within the city, if you put some windmill, so that's gonna be offshore. And this is also so this was initially 30, and then it has been increased to 800. So there's a logic behind this increment to 800, because the New England region or the ISO, they must be considering adding some extra windmills over here, so as to, and then again, if you see, it jumps to around 4138, and it retains that figure throughout till 2040. So that's how we have assumed and then put it here. All these assumptions which we're taking, which we're considering, or which we are putting here in the table, is going to be utilized in the other sheets. Like for example, the daily model, the 2000, the annual by hour, or and the charts and the tables. So, like for example, since we have reduced the nuclear, if we by 900 and then by 1000, so if for the year 2029, I can see that nuclear is responsible for only 1400 megawatt worth generation. So once we go to the chart from here, we can select the year here. Uh, all the graphs in all the different sheets are going to be refreshed, and then we can see the data pertaining to that particular year, that is 2029 in this case. So and so the graphs are going to be changed, and we'll be able to see the prediction as to what percentage is nuclear, because the nuclear would decrease in totality. So what percentage is nuclear, that can be obtained from the in the charts and tables and all. Let's continue with the entities here. So gas in new combined cycle, gas old combined cycle. So the old combined cycle, that's the biggest contributor to the energy grid here. 13,300 megawatt is what is the actual capacity. Now we can see slight reduction in this one, because there gonna be decommissioning of these plants, because they're very old, technically speaking, very old. But then on the other hand, I believe that the gas new combined cycle would increase as well. We haven't taken the factor of the increment, but then it has to increase. Otherwise, since the solar and the wind is increasing at a linear rate, as we see year by year, so it can be taken care of. The decrease in the gas, this gas new combined cycle, old combined cycle, single cycle, all these things, this contributes to around 60% of the total energy in the New England region. So it contributes to around 60% of the energy. We also have New York purchases and the sales. So this New England region, we sell it to the New York region or the state. So in the year 2019, we accepted, or we purchased around 1,822 megawatt, and then we sold 1517. So there can be a quick question as to why did we purchase in the first place when we were ready to sell here? So the net purchase would be around 300 or so, right? But then what was the reason? The reason is availability. So for example, on 1st of February, we do not have 1st of Feb, we do not have energy here. But due to some reasons, we were not able to generate more of the solar energy. So in that particular case, we can actually purchase, and the average comes out to be around 1,822. On second of Feb, just one day after that, we might have a day wherein the sun is very bright and the wind is also very sharp, wherein we'll be able to generate excess amount of energy using our renewables. In that case, we can actually sell it back. So this depends on the availability. So over here we purchased on few particular days because we did not have energy, and we sold because we had excess energy here. Again, we also go for purchase from Canada. So the maximum purchase from Canada for this year was around 3089, and we assume that it's going to be same all throughout. Now, these assumptions over here, again, I doubt shouldn't be that true, because uh, since our solar is increasing linearly and the per capita consumption is not increasing with that speed because it's already a saturated economy. So this has to go down because the solar is actually going to take care of the maximum Canada purchase in this region, right? Uh, that if we talk about the loads, if we add all these values together, sorry, till here, the maximum load for the year would be 25,370 megawatt. So this is the actual rated capacity required uh, for fulfilling the needs of the New England region. And this increases slightly. Most of the major contribution would be through solar. Since the nuclear is going to die out slowly, so solar and wind has to take care of it. And the Canada purchases would be increasing just because the nuclear is dying out, and the solar and the wind is not able to take its market share the way it should have taken. So that's one thing. Now, if we select one of the years, like for example, let me show you by selecting 2025. So if I select 2025 and click on enter, values from the year 2025 is gonna get loaded over here. So for the year 2025, as we mentioned, so initially it was 3,300 megawatt, right? So for the year 2025, as we have assumed, and then we have changed the value here, 2,400 would be the capacity in this region. So the nuclear for non-dispatchable here is going to be 2,400, and the variable cost per megawatt hour. So this is not mega, it should be megawatt hour. So per megawatt hour would be around 1.20. For variable, it's kept as 4.0, and the reason is because since it's going to be a costly technology, so the cost per megawatt hour is going to be high as well for nuclear dispatchable, because they're going to come from SMRs and others. Hydro, it's very cheap, so you see the variable cost per megawatt hour is 10 cents, you can say. The total capacity for that year would be 2,488, because there's not much changes here. 2,488 continues throughout. So these values are directly copied, so I don't need to explain you all these again. The purchases and all those things are here. And then, so what we have is that the maximum load, including the BTM, including the behind the meter solar, would be around 26,771 as it was over here. So this value we are talking about, 26771, right? We have also calculated the carbon tax and the so this is something else. So this is the uh, uh, so we are going for zero carbon emission norms and all. So there is there is a price per ton of carbon which is released per megawatt of energy or per gigawatt of energy. So that values are being calculated here. So these will help us. Like for example, if we change the energy mix, so this is about energy mix. If we, because nuclear has low carbon emissions, if we increase nuclear in the mix, this carbon tax will come down because we'll be emitting lesser carbon. So the dollar per ton of carbon dioxide will be lesser. So the fuel surcharge, the surcharge which consumer has to pay to the government for this carbon tax would be lesser. Now again, even here for dollar per megawatt hour, so if we are generating more of nuclear and more of hydro, the carbon in tons per megawatt hour is going to be lesser, and um, that's the reason why the dollar per megawatt hour for the carbon emission is also going to be lesser. So this was the first slide. Let me just take you to the daily energy model first. Let this load. Okay, so what we have done over here is we have downloaded the data from 2019 daily from the ISO New England. So ISO new hyphen any.com is the, I believe, the website from where, that's the official authorized website for the ISO New England, and it has all the data. So they have made this data readily available. So this is hourly data. So this would have around 8,760 rows, corresponding to 8,760 hours in a year. This data corresponds to the data for the year 2019. So this is the actual data of the year 2019. So this gives you, and it has few identifiers. So S means a Saturday or a Sunday, that's a weekend. W means a weekday. So the amount of coal which we used was zero. The energy which we generated using coal was zero for 1st of January 2019. For the 2nd of January 2019, it was around 21 megawatt. Similarly, with gas, it was around 74,466. For hydro, it was this. Nuclear, it was this. Oil. So we have a breakdown of the energy mix here. We use this much of wood to generate, this much was wind, steam was zero, solar grid. So this is the solar which is directly integrated with the power grid. So it was this much. Methane, we also burn methane to produce energy, so it was this much. Landfill gas is like biogas and all those things. Refuse gas or all those things which we can call. So it was this. We also burned some oil, so for that particular day it was zero. So this is the complete energy mix to the last bit. Uh, so this is the data which we obtained from ISO New England. Over here, if we see, so as I mentioned that we'll have 8,760 rows corresponding to all those. Sorry, this is daily data. This is not hourly data. So this has 366 rows corresponding to the leap year. So we are considering one of the days to have only 4 hours. And that's why we consider 366 days. So this has 366 rows, one corresponds to each. So exactly, that's the reason we had W and S, that S for the Saturday and Sunday, that is weekend, and W for the weekdays. Now, here we can actually calculate the annual. So this is annual maximum and minimum. So there would be one day out of all these 366 days where this the coal would be maximum. So you see coal over here is 69, here is 13, 104. So one of the days coal is going to be maximum. So we've taken the maximum coal. We've also taken the minimum coal. The minimum coal, as we saw for 1st of January 2019, was zero. So that would be the minimum. And average is also taken out, which is this. Again, for January, we have the maximum minimum. So we have actually bifurcated. We have accumulated the data, bifurcated that, and just tried to figure out what is the maximum and minimum for a particular month. This kind of analysis is very useful in order to ask a nuclear power plant operator to shut down in the days where in the lesser base load is required, or otherwise when we have high flux of renewables to support, even if the nuclear power plants are shut down or one of the nuclear power plants are shut down. So this kind of assessment, like what is the maximum required, so for a particular month we can see, we will be able to see, like for example for January the maximum is from coal is this much, right? There would be a total maximum as well. For February the maximum for coal is around this much, so we can see that in the month of February coal is not utilized much. We can actually ask people to burn more coal in February if we need to shut down one of our nuclear power plants in that particular month. So here you see nuclear is over here. So 96,000 is what we have produced using nuclear. So maximum, minimum, everything is given. So we can actually use this for planning as a planning tool. Now, so that was the monthly. So this is selection of minimum and maximum days. So let me see. So this is percentage of maximum. So what this means is, like for the day one of month one, so this is the first month and this is the day one of month one. Here we have already calculated the maximum for that particular year, right? So here if we just go down, we saw the maximum for that particular year. Maximum for that particular year for solar. So it was around this much in January, but maximum for the whole year was 9,164 megawatt. So this is 9167 megawatt. And let's go back to the. So here in this case, we say that for first day of the month, of the first month, solar grid percentage is 0.2% of the maximum. The maximum is 9,000 something, right? And this is 2%. But what exactly is the actual figure? The actual figure will come out on the first itself. So on the first, if you see, it's 2,504 for solar grid. So for the solar grid, we see that it's 2,000. So this will be 0.2%. This will be 0.2 because that's 10, right? So it's going to be 0.2% maximum. Sorry, 0.2 of as a fraction, not percent, but as a fraction. This has to be 24%. So this will be 24% of the total. Again, here it's going to be 37%. So this we have calculated in percentage, and there is a specific reason for calculating in percentage of the maximum. And the reason for that is we would like to we would like to make an average estimation of what it's going to be for a particular week, and based on that, or for a particular day, and based on that we can actually select our peaks for the maximum and the minimum per hour or per day on a per day basis. Like for example, for a week, if we understand, if we from our values through the curve fitting, if we understand that the maximum, the average for a week is around 100 megawatt, then suppose on Monday there is a bright shine in the sun, and that you have got already 20 megawatt that day, then Tuesday you can assume that Tuesday can be a low day wherein there would be cloud in the sky. That the model has been designed in such a way that if you adjust Monday, then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday would be adjusted on its own, in a way that it always conserves the average value, that is around 100 megawatt as we had decided. So this is conservation of the average. So that's the formula which we'll be using for modeling the solar. So that's the reason we're doing this. Similarly, we're doing it for the wind as well. So for the first day.
What if the sun is bright for like few days continuously? Still, it will be only the average.
Well, you see, this is just a model fit. So this is just a prediction. it can be true to the value of our assumptions, and the assumption would be based on many years of experience and also some real-time data. So this is basically a stochastic analysis. What I mean to say is that we have taken the values from the past. That is, we have taken the model from the past. That is the curve shape from the past data, and we would also like to infuse the parameters from the present. Like for example, for the last 20 years, the month of February was very cold. But from the present data, what we have got is that there is a scenario wherein this year it could be a bit warmer. And why? Because of the global warming and because of other things, or because of there would be because of a explosion of some volcanic this thing somewhere on the earth. So it can be. So the assumptions has to change. We have to actually have. So the beauty of stochastic analysis is that it will take care of the past data, and it will also consider the present scenario of what is actually happening in this world. So if it continues, so the model won't fail, but then the model is going to give you a better prediction of all the sunny days because it's a stochastic system. So because there is no cloud in the sky and because there is no humidity, the model would be able to identify that the next 7 days would be sunny. I mean, the model which has been designed over here is very basic. This model will not be able to do it. But if we build up upon this by using stochastic algorithms, then it will be able to predict. Otherwise, the prediction is going to fail. So as you rightly said, if it is bright for like 7 days, and if it is giving 20 megawatt every day, then by the end of 7 days it will become 140 megawatt, right? Whereas our average was around only 100 megawatt. So that case can happen, but but then the probability of this error happening is lesser, and we will have to minimize it more by going for stochastic analysis of the whole system. So similar thing has been done with all these things as well. Now, if we see here, this is 12. So this is months, right? So that we have 12 months. So here we see the average, the maximum, and the minimum fraction of the maximum. Let me just check. I would have got an email or something. Just hold on for a second. Yes. Annual meet. Okay. Yeah. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So this is again the maximum and the minimum, which has been calculated down there if you saw, and the same thing has been produced over here. So in this way. So this is 0.42. That is maximum was 42% of the maximum. Here maximum was 87% of the maximum, and here so one of them has to be one, right? Because one of them has to be maximum. That is how. So this is 0.42 is 0.42 of what it was in the month of April. Because in the month of April, we had the maximum. You got it, right? One of these values has to be one, because this is the complete year. And we are talking about the maximum in that particular year. So maximum in that particular year will be taken as 1. So we saw that the maximum was in the month of April. So the value for month of April is taken as 1, and the other values are in percentage of this value. So if this was 1, this has to be 0.4 times 1 or something times 1, because this is less than 1. You got it, right? So that's how the values have been calculated. It's same for, so if you see in all these rows, you'll find a 1 over here. Again, over here, there's going to be a 1 somewhere. So that's how.
For you, the factors that affect, such as solar, wind, then the New York purchase, all those things, you have taken out the maximum, the minimum of it, and the average as per your assumption.
Yes, exactly. That's correct. So this is not as per my assumption here. This is as per the value which we have got in 2019. So not the assumption, but the data. So this is the actual data we are talking about here. So this is how we have got the value for the curve. Now what we'll do is, now from this data, so the data which you see over here, we understand that solar is maximum in the month of April, January, February, March, and April. So maximum in the month of April. So now, based on these assumptions, when I draw a curve for the year 2029, I will have an idea that the maximum occurs in the month of March and April and May. So this is very close to maximum. This is again very close to maximum. This is maximum. So all these region, it's going to be high, and the other regions, it's going to be low. It's going to be very low in the month of December because it's winter and there will be no sunlight. It will be maximum here and minimum here. So for all the curves, we can very safely say that for the month of, so the modeling is very clear from here. The modeling basics would say that suppose that I am generating 100 megawatt. So presently I might be generating only 50 megawatt in the year 2020. But in the future, if I assume that we are generating 100 megawatt or maybe 300 megawatt in the year 2030, 10 years from now, then I can very easily give a breakup of what will be the individual capacity of generation for a particular month. You got it? Because I see a trend here. So if I'm generating 100 in total, then it will be this fraction in the month of January, because the curve shape will not change, right? Only the amplitude will change. The curve will become higher, but the shape of the curve will be preserved. You understood?
Right.
Because December is cold, right? December, you cannot have high sun. You cannot have sun light for bigger duration of time. So we can very safely assume that even in the year 2030, December will see only 50% of the maximum as it is seen. Sorry, only 40% of the maximum, as you can see over here. You can see my cursor as well, right? And similarly, April will see maximum. So the maximum will be seen by April. So the shape of the curve will be same. Only the amplitude will differ. The amplitude will increase or decrease. But depending on the addition of new, solar panels behind the meter or grid panels. So all those things will happen. Just let me check. I think I've got another email. Yes, I got another email. So similar is the case with the wind and hydro. So we are doing this in order to understand the shape of the curve. And looking at the shape of the curve, we will be able to predict the actual values or the calculated values for that particular month. You understood, right? The amplitude can increase. Like for example, when I said that we will be adding 250 megawatt every year, you see, when I go back to variables, here you can see that I'll be adding, solar grid will be adding 250 every year. So the solar grid is increasing every year by 2050. Initially it was 1294, then it became 1544, then it becomes 1794, because every year 250 megawatt is increasing. When it is increasing by 250 megawatt, the shape of the curve will not change. January will have less sunlight, so it will continue to have less sunlight. But since the number of solar panels in January will increase because of this addition in the next year, So the total generation in January will increase, but the efficiency of generation will be the same. You understood, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this was, so again, if we see, we have drawn some few curves here. So this is for the month, again the very same thing. Minimum, maximum, the average has been plotted. So this was the maximum, then this is the minimum. Minimum is 0, and then we have the average value here. So it has been plotted to show in. So again, for this is for wind, this is for solar. So all these has been plotted because it's difficult to understand from here, right? But you are able to comprehend well.
Yes.
So for people, it becomes very easy to see. So one of the values will be 100%. So for April, wind is very high, and it's highest in April. So this is, you see, 100%. It is operating at 100% capacity here. But then wind will not be that meherwan in the month of March. It's going to be a bit lesser. So that is why it is only 90%. So this will have 90% of what was here. So suppose here the value was 300 megawatt. This will be only 90% of 300 megawatt that will be generated in this month. So that's how the things are calculated. So I hope you, all these values and these points are clear. I don't think this has, okay. Yeah. So these are the calculated values in gigawatt, gross load, BTM solar. So in gigawatt hour as to how much. So Canada purchases in gigawatt hour is 89. Nuclear is this much. So these are the old peaking, less effective gigawatt hour with combined cycle. Now, so what we have done here is so for 300 days, we have also considered the actual, so what we have done is, based on the data, right? So based on the data for 2019, we have done two things. Number one is that we have calculated the, so for solar, this component is behind the meter solar, behind the meter
Behind
solar,
the?
behind the meter solar, which means that this is for the regular household solar panels, which are mounted on your house roofs, but it is not connected to the grid. So it is connected only to your house. Like for example, you can run your bulb, but then you are not providing energy to the grid. So this is behind the. So what we are doing here is, based on the curve which we plotted, we are trying to calculate using the formula or the model as to what is the what according to our model is the behind the meter solar energy that has been generated on day one. So it came out to be around how much? 9,939. Now we we compare the very same with the actual BTM. Actual BTM data we got from where? This data we got from the ISO New England. We downloaded this data. So when we downloaded the data, it was 3,000, and when we calculated, it came out to be 9,000. How is this working? You can understand, right? So one of the days it is taking as high. So similarly, this day it took this day as high, and it took this day as low. You see, high, low, high, low, high, low. But in reality, there is no low. So because this is trying to average, right? So if you take the average of these and if you take the average of these, it's going to be same. The actually it was 3,000 megawatt one day and 4,700 megawatt one day on the other day, and 2,900 on the third day. Our computer model or the code which we have designed will not be able to capture all the basic details. What it will be able to do is that it will be able to assign few values. Like for example, it will be able to think that, okay, On day one, it was very high. On day two, it has to be low because it has to balance out, right? You understand? Hello?
Yes.
So if you take the average of these two, it will be same as average of these two. So 9,181, and here it is 5,000 and 3,000. So it's going to be very similar. But
why is it fluctuating below? Because the calculated VTM is still the same. However, 2019 actual VTM is varying. So if it's an
no,
average,
nothing like that. So what is happening is that we have designed our system in such a way that it calculates on its own. And how will a computer calculate? We give it some formulas. The formula which we have given to the computer here is that we have told we have asked the computer to calculate based on the averages. Like for example, the average of a week. So the computer thinks that, okay, I have to maintain the average. For example, if you drive from Ara to Varanasi, you might drive at an average speed of around 40 km per hour, or suppose you might drive at an average speed of around 100 km per hour, right? But if I take the instantaneous value of your velocity, it might come out to be 80. Sometimes there will be traffic, so you might have to drive at only 5 km per hour. But then to maintain the average, you have to cover up. So if the average is 100, and if you have driven your vehicle with 5 km per hour for around 5 minutes, then to actually maintain the average of 100 km per hour for the next for the next 10 to 15 minutes, you might have to drive at a velocity of around 190. You understood? Did you understand?
yes.
So if you drive to maintain an average speed of 100 km per hour between 2 points, if for some reason you have driven with a lesser velocity, then in the next half of the time, or in the leftover time, you'll have to drive faster, right, to cover what has been lost. If you want to reach the airport in 1 hour, and if the auto takes 5 minutes and the bus takes around 55 minutes, for some reason, if the auto has taken 15 minutes, in order to reach the airport in the same 1 hour, you have to ensure that the bus reaches in only 45 minutes.
Understood.
The speed of the bus has to increase to compensate for the loss of speed because of the auto. So randomly the computer has given one value of 10,000, around 10,000 to the first day. Since we have driven at a very high speed on the first, we have to drive at a lower speed on the second day, so that the average is conserved. You understood?
Right.
So that's how it has been done.
Understood.
This is the cumulative value. We have calculated the cumulative value because we wanted to. So if you see the cumulative value, there will not be much difference. I mean, there would be much difference because of some calculation thing, but it has to finally converge to the same values. So initially it will be different, but later on, if you see it, it has to converge somewhere. So similar is the case with other things. So here, the calculated hydro, the computer is calculating at 29,000, then 20, 20, 20, 20, 20. So this is the default figure the computer is taking. The actual figure, the first day is 29. The second day, it's not 20 as it has been taken by the computer, but it is actually 32, very high. Then 29, 28. So this is how we are trying to model and see if it matches the actual value for that year. You understood? So that's what we have done here. Now, if you see, so this is the total energy demand. So let us talk about the gas, or let's talk about the solar. So this is the behind the meter solar, right? You saw this one?
Hmm.
This is our assumption, and this is how the actual is the orange line, and this is what we had assumed. Why is what we had assumed going very high? It's going very high because it is also going very low.
Yeah, but what is the reason for it?
The reason is that because we have taken one value as very high, so the other value has to be very low, so as to conserve the average value. बहुत तेज गाड़ी चला लिया. If you really want to reach within the same time period, so next we have to drive slowly.
Shouldn't it be near the original value? Somewhere
We have to
around
we have to
original.
we have to make the model, design the model in such a way that it becomes it is very close to the original value, but because of some deficiency, because of some issues, because you cannot actually predict the future, right? We can only try to predict the future. So how
So
do
what
you
are the
try to
factors?
predict the future? By hit and trial methods. You actually cannot know कि 1st February को if it's going to be a sunny day or a windy day. You don't know, you cannot say, but
But then
you
the difference is huge.
the difference is not huge. The difference, where is the so when it's very high, it is also very low. But over here, yes, there is a difference that I can see. Yes, of course, yes, there is. But then the whole point is that the the orange has to fix somewhere between this. So this is bad modeling. This is bad modeling. So what has happened over here is bad modeling. The actual thing should be that this should have been this orange line should have been somewhere in the middle, and then it could have been explanatory. Like for example, then I could have said that okay, since it's very high, the other value is very low. The low is very close to this, but the high is far beyond. So it's bad modeling, as what we
But
can
then you
say.
are working on the model and you are calling it a bad modeling.
Yeah, we can actually call it a bad model because this is our job. Unless and until we call it a bad model, we'll not be able to rectify it. You need to understand what the issue is, and only then you can rectify it. If you keep on thinking that what you have designed is the best in the world, or is actually not bad, then you will be complacent, and there will be no further development. This holds for everything, not only for studies but for everything. So so if you see, so here if you see, it's a good fit. If we see the energy purchases, this is a good fit. You see, it's a good fit. The computer has done a fairly good job here. We have done a fairly good job because if you see on from 13th to 21st, the actual value is very high, and from 1st to 9th, the actual value is somewhere in the middle. Now since we have taken few very high values in the starting of the year, we have to take few lower values as well, so as to compensate. And this is a very good fit. You see, the maximum and minimum is being captured by this, and it's actually a very good fit.
But there is variation in this data as well. The example that you have shown of 13 to 21, there's a constant high for three numbers, but your data shows that there's a decrease as well.
Sorry, what did you say?
This one, the data that you were showing
Hmm.
earlier,
Yeah.
with the one you mentioned to be a perfect fit, not this one, the other one on top.
It takes a bit time to load. It's gonna be somewhere below. Yeah, these.
This one.
Hmm.
So since you gave me example of 13 to 21, if you could see that there's constant high, the actual data
Hmm.
is on constant high for like three numbers,
Right.
but then
Three
there's
days.
down for 3 days. But then according to your assumed data, see there's a frequent up and high in a in a same motion. I don't know.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, you see, our computer program or the modeling will not be able to predict the exact. So that is what I said. What I
But
told you is that, you see, listen to me for a second. We will not be able to predict if 1st of February 2029 would be a sunny day or a windy day. That we cannot predict right now. But what we can predict is, if 1st February 2029 or 2030, whatever the year we are talking about, is a windy day, and even the second day is a windy day, the third day is a windy day, then in that particular month, the other days will have to be sunny days, so as to make the conserve the average. And that's the basis for this prediction, nothing else.
then what's the point of this model?
The point of this model you'll be able to understand later on, if once we go to the later part. So this will actually give you the cost of abatement of carbon dioxide. This will also give you, like, for example, if you have modeled that solar is increasing at a rate of 250 megawatt every year, then it's going to become huge in the year 2030 and in the year 2040. And nuclear power plants are dying out, so they're getting decommissioned with no scope of building no new nuclear power plant because of some political reason. In that scenario, if there is a day which is not sunny, nuclear is gone, gas plants will also be decommissioned to some extent. If there is a day, and the solar and the wind will capture 60% of the market. If there is a day that that there is no sun, then we will not be able to produce electricity. On that particular day, in that particular year, we will not have nuclear because of some political reasons. We will not have gas because of these, will not be able to extend the lifetime of those gas. And since solar would be much more easier, it will be very difficult for the gas companies to coexist along with the other. Hello.
I'm here.
Yeah. So since the cost of solar and wind would be very cheap, hence it will be very difficult for the other companies, the gas power plant companies, to compete, and hence they will actually close their business because they will not be making any profit. When that scenario comes, if there is no sunlight for one day, what will happen? What do you think what will happen? So there will be complete dark, blackout. If there is no solar, if there is no sun that day, it's complete blackout. To avoid such scenarios from happening, the government can actually take some policy decisions right now based on the data which we have plotted here. Like, for example, when the Congress committee, they see that if we keep on adding solar at the rate of 250 per year, we are we are able to achieve what is called as carbon less emission, carbon free energy. But at the very same time, we are also losing control over the power grid. Hence, probably after 10 years, the Congress committee can come in with a policy decision that would say that if you put more solar grids on your rooftop, we will charge you more. Or probably they might go for increasing the custom duty, or the tax on solar products, so that it is checked, so that the solar doesn't increase at that speed. You understood, right? So basically policy decisions can be made using, having a look at this. Otherwise, how would you be able to analyze what lies ahead? if you don't model if you don't model how the increment in the system, if you don't model the cost of energy, if you don't model the cost of carbon dioxide abatement, what will happen is that you will not be able to foresee into the future, and then you are bound to make mistakes which can be disastrous. Hence, when you realize this data, when you analyze it, you will come across various many such things. I just gave you an example, and you can actually take policy decisions based on that. So it's not to actually predict what will happen that day, but it is to give you an idea of what could happen if certain things remain the way it is, if certain things grow in a certain way, so that you can actually take preemptive measures to not let those things happen during that particular time. I hope you understood.
Hmm. Yes. Is it over? Ankit, is it over?
No, 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 I'm just copying this data and I'm just putting it in my report. I'm putting it in my report because so you see, I this is for the very first time that I'm actually going through all these things in the way I am going through right now. You know, when you try to teach something to someone, you learn it in a better way, and that's what is happening. So I'm realizing so many things during the during our conversation, because while I'm trying to tell you these things. So I'm also making a note of
Okay.
all these things.
Give me just half a minute. I'll be back.
Okay. Hello. Okay. So what was happening is that I was trying to superimpose or match the 2025 data with the 2019 data, which we have on the 2019 daily energy sheet. Now I went back and I changed the 2025, which we had earlier selected, to 2019. So when I change it to 2019, then now what I'm essentially trying to do is to model the 2019 data and compare the same with the 2019 actual data. So now after choosing 2019, when I go back to the 2019 energy, daily energy, I can see that everything would be a perfect fit.
Right.
So you see,
It matches with that of
the average would always be matched here. At that time, the average wasn't getting matched because I was taking it in the wrong way. Here, if you see, can you see this? It's a perfect fit. If it goes high, it comes low, so that the average is maintained here within the bandwidth. Again, here in this case as well. So this 2019 data has nothing to do, but this is just for the testing. So 2019 we used to test the model which we created. And while testing the model, we have come to understand that it's a perfect fit. We can do one more thing. We can actually do it, take it as an exercise. Download the data for 2020, which would be readily available now, and then try to match the prediction with the actual data. And that can be one of the exercises for this model. So you understood, right? You understood the whole essence of this up till here. Even if you see the average comes out to be, same. Again, here it's going to be same. Here there's slight difference, but then obviously we can have some margin of error. Now, when we go to the daily model, we can actually choose one of the days. So this was just to see if the model works. This sheet had no other job but just to see if the model works by comparing our prediction for the year 2019 to the actual data which we have downloaded for the year 2019, and we see that it's a good match. When we go to the daily model here, daily model actually models the daily values of the whole system. What I mean by saying that is, for the year 2019, which has been selected, I can select any day. Like for example, 135 is selected as default. I can select 235. So if I choose 235, 135th day is what? Day of the year is what? Wednesday, 15th of May, 2019. If I select 235, it will come out to be somewhere around November or December. So this becomes December. So 2030. So 235. What is happening here? Let me just press enter. I'll have to go to formulas and I can press this calculate now, so as to refresh, because it's a big model, so it takes a lot of. So I press this calculate now so that this will be calculated once again. It will take some time, but then it's gonna refresh. Yeah, so it has, I think, done that. So 235 would be 23rd of August in 2019. This will be 34th week and month would be 8. Gas price has been predicted as $202.14 per MMBTU. This is the unit for heat. Now, based on the curves which we had drawn, we see that the load minimum in gigawatt would be 10, load maximum in gigawatt would be 22. And how did we reach this? While we were doing the daily energy, I'll take you back to the daily energy, and we had actually drawn the curve. And this is what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And here it's the same thing has been done, but on a daily basis. So this is done on a monthly basis for first month, second month, third month, and this is done on the daily basis. So what has been done is the curve will have a maximum and a minimum load. So in the year 2019, now suppose if we had taken the year 2035, the amplitude of the curve will go high, but the shape will remain the same. So based on the amplitude, these values will change. The load minimum will change, the load maximum will change. Load shape, it's a weekday, so the load shape is going to be for a weekday. The load shape has been given here. So this is here, from here to here is the load shape. For 24 hours in a day, this says that for the electrification, for the solar shape, we don't have any data. For the solar, we say that it's a low day. For the solar, we say that 23rd August is a low day, which means that there will be less solar radiation. Hence, we'll have lesser of sun rays. For the wind, we say that it's a high day. So this is something which we have done. Hydro, we say that it's a high day. So if 23rd of August is a high day, then probably 24th of August can be a low day, just to make the average similar, or just to conserve the average.
I got it.
So what we are essentially doing here is we are taking the percentage of the high value, which will be reproduced here. So we are saying that the load shape is going to be this. That means at 1 o'clock in the midnight, or at 1 o'clock in the morning, the load shape would be this will be 10%, or sorry, 15% load will be here. So what will be 15%? Maximum load is 22. So this will be 15% of the maximum load. At this point, it will reduce, and here it becomes maximum. At this point, it will be 22.96. You got it?
Okay.
So that's how it's happening. Similarly, the same thing is going to happen in these sectors as well. New York purchase, so we say that it's a day wherein we have to purchase from New York. So it's a high purchase day, which means that the values are going to be more or less higher. And why is it a high purchase day? Because the solar is low. So that can be one of the reasons that it's a high purchase day. And also that it's a weekday. So weekdays, people use more energy.
In sheet 1, that is 2019 daily energy, while you were explaining the New York purchase, or I guess in the daily model, maybe you explained the purchase and sale, But then, what is the purpose of this purchase?
Suppose for some reason you're not able to have good solar radiation here, or
Hmm.
probably for some reason that the plant might be shut down for maintenance reason. Your nuclear power plant also needs to shut down for at least 15 days in a year, or maybe in 1.5 years. So once your nuclear power plant is shut down for 15 days or 20 days, where will you get all the energy from? You will have to purchase it from somewhere. So you can purchase it from New York state, or you can purchase it from Canada, or you can purchase it from India. You have to purchase, right? This is one scenario. There will be other days where in the wind is working, solar radiation is also there, all the nuclear power plants are working, all the gas power plants are working, and hence you're producing more than what you generally consume. What will you do with all these excess energy? You can sell out to somewhere, right, to someone. So that's why you also sell. Someday you purchase because you are producing low, someday you sell because you're producing more than you consume. That's
Oh,
the dynamics of it. So this these gives you the shape of all the curves, and basically this is the shape, I believe. This is how the shape has been given. So you can see solar is a low solar day, right? They say that it's a low solar day. So the orange is solar. So you see it's going very low. It's not going to 100% at all today. It's low for today. Some other day wind is high day. So where is wind? Onshore wind is this one. Offshore is this one. So offshore wind is blue. So this is since it's a high wind day, it's gonna be high. Nuclear is more or less, constant. So do we have nuclear here? Nuclear we don't need to model because it's always same. So this,
but then
yeah.
with the curve, with all the factors that are mapped in the curve,
Hmm.
uh, it is really difficult to understand which factor is affecting which one, because they are all different and are going differently and behaving differently.
You don't have to see how these are going. All you have to see is that if they add up to make what you are consuming that particular day. Like for example, at 1 o'clock in the morning, if you are consuming 300 megawatt, are these together making 300 megawatt or not? If not, then you'll have to purchase more. So the New York purchases will be higher so as to compensate for your lower generation. So when you combine all these values together, it will be equal to what you're consuming, or what you're consuming plus what you're exporting.
But then, for example, if we consider the onshore wind shape,
Hmm.
wherein it is going up to 30%, it's coming, there's a downfall, a steep downfall.
Right.
Okay, so now if we assume that and we say that at 9 o'clock, if all these things together come up to the percentage or the number that you have mentioned, or to the number that it is coming up to, but
Hmm.
then it is down here and the other factors are up
Of course,
similarly.
it has to be that way, na? So once the offshore wind is decreasing at a particular value, it is decreasing because there is low wind. Wind you cannot control, right? So wind only God controls. So if there is low wind at 9 o'clock in the morning, we see that there is a dip. At 9 o'clock, we see that there is no wind or lesser wind. When it becomes lesser wind, then it means that other factors will have to jump in. Other factors will have to operate at maximum capacity.
So likewise, when this offshore wind is on at 60%, then
Hmm?
the other factors should be low because it is high, but the other
No,
factors are
but
up.
then but then this curve is not how you are reading it. So it should be read in a different way. This 60% is 60% of its own maximum. It's not 60% of the total energy grid maximum. If you draw 60% of the total energy grid maximum, then you'll not be able to see this refined curve. Many of the curves will be so low that you'll not, which will be very close to 0%. Like for example, solar will be only around 1%. So you will see something touching the zero and a straight line touching the zero. You'll not be able to see the variation at all, because it will vary between 1% to around 2.4%. Do you think you'll be able to see the graph here if it varies only between 1% and 2.4%? No, because you see the
Also,
next value is 10%. You'll not even be able to see the variation. So this graph has been drawn in a different way. This 60% is the 60% of its own maximum, which means that if the wind offshore capacity is 100 megawatt, it is over here, it is working at 60 megawatt, over here it is working at 30 megawatt, over here it is working at some. So it is 60% of its own maximum, not the overall grid maximum. So it is to be read in a different way. You're reading it in a different way.
but although it is this much percentage of its own maximum, and so are the other uh, uh, options or the factors as well, but then they are treated under the same atmosphere. They must be given the same. They were calculated at this with the same data, so they should at least behave in a similar pattern.
What you are saying, why would they, I mean, solar wind is low, which means solar would be less. If
But
solar,
then that is
if sunlight is more than the so sorry, then the solar will be high, na? What does that has to do with the
exactly
wind?
what I support what you are saying, but then all I'm saying is that again, when it is low, the other factors are up. But then when it is high, then the other factor should be low. However, it is the
You
other
will
factors
not,
are up.
what I'm saying is that you will not see that kind of variation in this graph. There has to be another type of graph which has to be drawn. This is 60% of its own value. This, you cannot compare this with this. You cannot compare solar with wind in this graph. You can only compare wind with itself. Wind was 60% of its maximum here. It is 30% of its maximum here. This has nothing to do with solar. You see, solar, on the other hand, where is solar? Solar is this orange, right? Solar, on the other hand, is here it's 30% of its maximum, and here it's around 0%. So because there is no sunlight in the night time, so it's 0% till 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock, there is a sunrise, and then it starts increasing. It was a windy day, hence the sun, hence the curve falls here, right? Wind curve is actually floating here, but then the solar curve is flat. It has fallen down because it's a windy day or probably a cloudy day. Now, this solar variation corresponds to only 1% of the total energy capacity. This wind might correspond to 10%. How can you even compare that 1% and with that 10%? There is no comparison. You cannot use this graph to compare these two values, is what I'm trying to say. Your question is wrong. You
Okay.
cannot compare here. The solar can be 1% of the total. The wind can be 90% of the total. If the solar is coming down, it will come down by maybe 10%. Suppose wind is contributing to 90% of the total grid capacity. If it comes down even a slight bit, it will come down how much? Maybe 10%, maybe 5%, maybe 4%. Solar is contributing only to 1%. Even if it wind comes down by 5%. Solar ka the total capacity is 1%. Do you think any correlation would exist between these two? No, not at all. The whole capacity factor is different for all these different forms of energy. So there cannot be any correlation between these. So this is the fraction, this is the energy mix. 13,300 is what we are producing for this present day. So gas new single cycle is this much, old single cycle is this much. So all these are the fractions of. Hydro is producing at 2,400, nuclear at 3,300, nuclear non-dispatchable 0 because there is none for this particular year. Now electrification, all these data we have not modeled these parameters, but we have put the space so that we can do it later on. Photovoltaic behind the meter generation is 0 since it's a low day, right? So it was less here. And also that till 6 o'clock there is nothing. So at 6 o'clock it has started rising. So these are the values of the rise. Net load to the grid is this much, this value. So the total load you have understood, we have already calculated the total load. The minimum total load is 10 and the maximum is 22. So we'll be reaching 10, will be somewhere between 10 and 22 here. So 22 here. So this is the maximum load, net load for that particular day. And then we'll be having 10 as well. So this is the minimum load for that day. So this has been modeled here. And how has this been modeled? This has been modeled based on the curve which we had drawn. So only the values have been changed. The amplitude has been changed, but the shape of the curve has been preserved. So if I choose some other year, then it will be in the same proportion. Only the values will change, but then the proportion will be same. You got it? Did you understand what I'm saying? The nuclear, it runs at so nuclear is non-load following, so it runs at what it has to run. So it will always be 3.30 gigawatt. Hydro can be thoda bahut changes can be done over here. So we are changing. So some changes are being made by controlling the speed of the water which is falling on the turbine and all those. So by controlling the number of gates to be opened at the dam. So that way we are controlling the hydro. When we want maximum, we are getting the maximum. When we want minimum, we can control it. Canada purchases. So this is the purchase. So this is in, again, gigawatt. So 2.96 gigawatt is what we are purchasing at this time, 3 at this time. This is the cost for the purchase. So 50 cents per megawatt hour is the purchase cost. Biomass. So we are burning biomass and all those things, refuse, and we are getting this. So this is constant incineration. Photovoltaic, again, this is grid connected, onshore wind. So these are the values which we have plotted. These are the modeled values for that particular day. And how we have modeled all these is by taking the shape of the curve. The amplitude is varying, but the shape is constant, and that's why we get all these values. So for some other year, the value will be different. But if you take and plot the shape of, for the 24 hours, the shape will be same. Only the amplitude will be different. You understood? Hello?
Yes.
So now there is another important concept over here, and that is, so this is PV grid with 2-hour delay. So we are charging the battery and then we are discharging the battery after 2 hours so as to shift our load. So the project which I'm doing along with Wien, and so it is based on this concept. So this is price set by curtailments at $1 per megawatt hour. So now, so presently, because it's 2019, we don't have to curtail anything. Curtail means that we don't have to refuse, say no to any sort of energy, because we can actually sell it off to sell off the energy which we are producing in excess. So we don't have to curtail. But later on in the future, we might have to curtail as well. Like for example, if we keep on growing with the rate of around 250 being added every year, then let me do one thing. Let me just keep the nuclear as 3300 for the whole time, right? So this is done. And now let me go to the year 2035. Let's see what happens then. So nuclear, I am assuming that we are not losing any nuclear power plant in the future. It will always remain uh, in the capacity what it is today. And now let's go to the daily model. So this is 3rd of March 2035. Hello.
Yes.
So now when you come and when you see here price set by curtailment in dollar per megawatt, we see that we have to curtail. That means we have to not allow some of the sources in at this point. So this is refining. I mean, let this actually rest, or let me just press this calculate now button. So it says that 7.5 gigawatt has been curtailed, and there is a principle for curtailing as well. Now we'll have to see what to curtail, what not to curtail. So solar and wind will be first to be curtailed. We have to set the priorities as well. So this is the priority. So when we have excess of something, we will cut short on Canada purchases. If we have excess of something, why should we buy from Canada? We'll not do that. So we'll curtail this. Then the biomass and other thing will stop burning that. Then third one will cut the grid connected photovoltaic cells. Then we'll not give the energy to the photovoltaic. In the fourth, if we still have excess energy, then we'll cut the onshore wind. Third will, and then we will cut the offshore. And then the last step of curtailment is cutting the offshore wind. So this is how we have to do. Did you understand?
Yes.
So here you can see the curtailments. Because we are producing things in excess in the year 2035, the solar is much more than what is required, and hence you see this is the curtailment graph. So this is the daily curtailment. So we'll have to curtail the first January, we'll have to curtail this much. And then so these are the values where of the curtailments. So these curtailments would be basically due to wind, and these curtailments would be basically due to the solar here. And there is no curtailment over here. The reason would be that the nuclear power plants would be actually not working here, because they would be uh, actually operated upon, or they would be shut down for like 15 days so that fuel rods can and all those things can be changed. So charts, and this is for the daily curtailment. There's a difference between, because the actual data is for 2019. You see over here, you will find that in the year 2019 it was a good fit, because the value for the behind the meter solar in megawatt hour was around 5,000, something like this, right? Now in the year 2035 it will rise to around 40,000 or so. So it has to be the variation would be around 40,000. So for a particular day, either it will be 40,000 or it will be nothing. Because of the solar, there is no sun someday, it will be nothing. But this is computer done. Had it been done, taken the real values, had the real values been taken, it would be somewhere around this. But then it's computer. So one day it is showing as high, the other day it shows as low, so that the average remains conserved. So this is hourly analysis. So what is happening at what hour? So this is hourly analysis, annual by hour. I think we should close this for today.